Excellent. So if you didn't watch it, we'll watch it now. But essentially, we're going to see blue is attacking this goal here. White is defending. This is in the state of Massachusetts. As always, any of these videos are not to embarrass any officials or for educational. It seemingly might be a three-man game from what we see, meaning there might be an official that is closer, that should be closer to this goal as versus further out, simply the way they are running. And then there's an official towards the midline. So there's three officials, but the big key to this is the official that is in our frame is sole responsibility is covering the goal line, and if the ball covers the goal. There are additional responsibilities on top of that, as you're going to learn, is that you often get 6 or 7 responsibilities at a time as an official, but you always have a primary, or what we call sole, meaning if all else fails, you go back to number 1 on your list. So we'll let it play.
Behind you! Pop! Wait, pop! Wait, come out! Wait, go!
Now again, a little half court, and you're going to see a player move towards goal eventually here after a few passes. Now we have whistles. So what is our immediate reaction, as we did last week? I don't care if we pick fan, player, coach, parent, brother official, yourself. What's your reaction of what's going on? Somebody give me a general vibe, please.
Well, the referee's not standing on goal line extended.
All right, so a little bit off, right? We'll kind of talk about positioning of it. Can you still see a goal standing behind the net?
Yeah, you can see him tickle the twine there a little bit.
Yeah, right. We're going to use context clues, right? The ball moves fast, right? Ball obviously can move upwards of 120 miles per hour in pro games, a little bit less in high school, right? But the ball moves quick. It's really tough to see. So we're going to use context clues where if that, mesh absolutely bulges and goes out, we're going to see it. What's the other context clue that we can use in this frame here? I'll leave it right here. The ball is right on the ground here.
Goalie's reaction.
Yeah.
The goalie's reaction. Absolutely. What's the next thing?
The shooter's reaction.
Yeah.
Or the ball
Shooter's
landed.
reaction.
And that ball drops straight down.
Ball drops straight down.
The way the ball moved.
What about the defenseman, right? The defenseman, the other teammates, right? We see a celebration. We say head sunk, head sunk, head sunk. We say, the ball's laying on the ground, right? We got a lot of things kind of going on right here that we can see. Goalie kind of picks it up, right? Do we have, and again, there's not really a good signal that we do no, right? Or things like that, or washout like hockey. Sometimes we'll still do that, even though it's not necessarily a mechanic, but there's a lot kind of going on, right? Even the defenseman is kind of questioning what's going on, right? Obviously, you're going to have parents and coaches and everything else, right? And then you just kind of mosey on down the field, right? At that point. And then you have a lot of whistles. I have no idea what the end is. Kind of the other base of this, right, is that this is a playoff game. And this is a large implication goal at the time, according to the report, right? And that kind of swung momentum and yada, yada, ended up being 5 or 6 goals. But again, in the perceptions as we start, right, is this the best way to get everybody to not notice us as an official?
Definitely not. Definitely not.
Right? Probably not. Right? Really, really, really tough to that exact point, right? And again, we're kind of slow up the field. We're not, if it's a big call, if it's not a big call, right? Just pump it. Go out with an arm. Come in a little bit closer. Even if you're not sure, you can take the second, right? In the context clue, right? Even if you think, hey, it's a goal and I somehow missed it, right? Maybe blowing a whistle is not the worst idea, and talking to your partner, right? Especially as we're at the lower level and beginning, right? We rather get it right and correct it versus it coming down the field. And again, I don't know what that whistle was, if somebody else wanted to correct it or if they went off sides or whatever it may be, but it's really tough when you just get no communication, seemingly, of what's kind of going on. And at that same point, again, it's tough to tell it's 2 or 3 man, but to that same point, right? It's, are we far out? Are we paying attention to what's going on? Do we look like we want to be there? And it kind of comes back to that point, right? Where even, the ball goes up, we're in a playoff game, and we just kind of, I'm going, right? And the same thing. And this coach wants an answer. Should we go to that sideline, right? And we're going to teach you, you move towards the sideline, because the closer you get to that coach, the quieter they get. It's human nature, right?
Wow.
Go ahead.
Rob, can you replay that from the beginning for me, please?
Yeah.
Behind you! Move it! Pop! Wait, pop! Move it! Wait, come out! Wait, go! Move it! Body up! Skip down! Over here!
Right? We call it mid to lower level, what you're going to see on a really good JV. Even the sound, right? We don't hear metallic sound. We don't see the ball fly, right? Just has a lot of issues right back to our theme of you're on video, right? Right? To the, can we justify? Go ahead, James.
So that was a goal then.
Correct.
Now, but that sound that it made, what did it hit? Did it hit a pole or?
The mesh. That's the mesh sound. When it hits like a canvas bag is essentially what it is.
Ah, okay.
Looked like
I
it
didn't
hit the
realize
goalie.
that-
Hit the goalie in the head.
I think
Okay,
it hit the goalie.
I thought it was more like a net type of where I wasn't expecting to make a sound like that. Sorry.
Yeah. Straight in the back just makes a whoosh, kind of like when you, doesn't happen very often, right? But you just shoot a basketball directly into the netting, right? And nothing else. It just makes a weird whoosh sound.
Yes. I got it.
Right?
Is that the ball right there by the post on the top? Is that the ball?
No, it's
No,
down on
it's-
its foot. It's down
Yeah,
on
it goes here and then comes back down.
Okay, thanks.
And then it drops right here. You see it
So
drop straight
so
out.
It went in and it
Oh,
hit
so
the
look at
mesh, and the mesh made it bounce out.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep.
Hey, Rob,
If it
had they
hits
ruled this?
I don't know. There's no end to that. There was just no goal
okay.
at some point. It was just a video from a few years ago,
So,
right?
Well, not that I don't care what they ruled. What would you guys have ruled? Would you have stopped it? And like, how does all of that stuff? Because I mean, I know there's correctable errors when it comes to basketball, but like, would that be classified as like a correctable error, or does play just continue? Like, how does all of that stuff work?
Yep. Simple answer. The most important reason we're out there, and the only reason they play the game, is to score goals. The winner is only determined by who scores more goals at the end. So our sole job, outside of keeping people safe and everybody going home safely, right, is to make sure we get the goals. That is the most important thing. So to that point, that is always a correctable error because you need to make sure we get that.
Hey, Rob, can I add something real quick?
Yeah, good.
I promised I wasn't going to say anything tonight. But when you have somebody like Mike Valdez there, right? Imagine him being the coach that's down on that lower end. And it's a tough thing to do, but sometimes you have to just be totally truthful with him. And I have with Mike on games where I didn't see it hit the net. And they have to live with it. And Mike was a good guy. I mean, he'll yell, but he was really good at it. You know, it's good to play off the coach too, to see where they were. But thanks.
In the same day as to Al's point too of if you think it was and you're not certain, blow your whistle, stop it, go get your partner. You can talk to them. You're allowed to talk to them. We don't see it very often, especially when we watch TV games, right? Is guys are extremely well trained, so they're not going to go over their partner very often. But again, if that's a JV game and that's with 1 minute left, and those kids have waited all day to play that game, and they lose that game, and your partner goes, I saw it in the net, right? You guys don't, right? And it just becomes really tough to that perception. So
don't stop during the fast break, right?
yes. So I don't know why that whistle kind of occurred, but so again, we're going to go through rule 1, 2, and 3, which sounds like a lot. There's only 7 rules in total So the entire game of lacrosse. Rule 7 is a lot of administrative, as I kind of call it. Rule 1, 2, 3 is just how you kind of set up the game. And then rule 4, 5, and 6 is how we actually play and call it. So 4 is playing the game, 5 and 6 are 2 types of penalties that we have. So most of what we talk about within the entire span of officiating is 4, 5, and 6. And we kind of omit 1, 2, 3, and 7 because those are generally standard. So that's why we're only going to spend one night on it. And we'll kind of move a little bit again with more experienced guys, but at any point, slow me down. We struggled a little bit last year going through this, but hopefully with more people with more experience in the room, and whoever wants to jump in, be my guest. But if you had to explain to your grandmother who's never seen the game of lacrosse what the game is in one sentence, give me some words or phrases, or somebody give me a sentence, give me a couple stabs. Go ahead, somebody.
Hockey on the field.
I love it.
I like to explain it as if soccer and hockey had a grandchild. It's a
I have
little bit
another
removed.
grandkid.
It's a little bit removed, but it's takes a little bit from both. It's assuming my grandmother has watched soccer and hockey though too.
Excellent. Who else? I like that. Come on, don't make me call on people, please.
It's kind of stole mine. Hockey in the air, really. It kind of looks like to me.
But I don't know hockey or soccer or any of that. Is it a pet? Is it a food? What is it?
Oh, game played on a field with a lacrosse ball and a bunch of sticks. I'm just hard
Excellent.
to put it into one sentence.
And what's the object of the game? So it's a game. So there's a winner and a loser, right? And how do we win and lose?
Score goals.
We got to score a goal. And how do we score a goal?
Put it into a 6x6 net.
Right? So it's a game played on a field with sticks where we got to throw a ball into a net and score more than our opponent, right? So I'm going to cheat because this is the rule book. They're going to use more than a sentence, and they're not going to explain it to your mother or grandmother for that matter, right? Or dad or uncle or whoever, right? But again, if we go through the first rule in the entire book, it kind of explains the game in one sentence. If we take out the really big key pieces, right? It's two teams, 10 players. They try to score. The ball has to enter the goal. Somebody has to win. That's it, right? And then there's other rules you should follow to make sure it's fair and equitable. So that way everybody gets a fair shot at trying to win, right? But it kind of frames out, when we think about it, everything we do is based on that. So to go back, James, to your question, the most important thing in the game by rule and by definition is to win the game. And the only way to win the game is to score goals. So if we don't get goals, it's really tough to win the game. And our perception of how well we did as an officiating crew is really damaged to begin with, right? It's really tough to recover from that if we're not getting those first kind of parts of the game. So when then we talk about the other rules of the game, and this is always an ode to Steve Hinchy, who again was our trainer for years and years and years, but really describes it well. The rules really only do three things, and that's it. It is that simple. They define, so they tell you what needs to be done or how it is, or they explain what a term is to then apply it to something else. They either restrict, so you can't do something in this manner or all the time, or when this happens. And then the last one is prohibit. You can't do it at all. You can't start the game without 10 people. You can't play on a field without goals. You can't hit somebody in the head. It's that simple, right? And so again, we're always going to boil back our rules to defining, restricting, and prohibiting. So first activity, we won't do breakout rooms, but if we had a list, so we're not talking to grandma and grandpa, we're now talking to rec director, high school phys ed chair, prep school organizer, whoever. We want to play a game of lacrosse and we want to get an organized game together. What do we need? Go ahead. This is a laundry list. I'm expecting a lot
We
of
need
answers.
we need a field with correct lines on it for offside, be able to call offsides, and the restraining box for keeping them inside during faceoff. So
Yeah.
a correctly lined
Field.
field. Yeah.
Excellent. Next.
We
2
need
goals.
Goals. Perfect.
7 cones.
Yeah. There's
20
more now,
people.
but we'll stay away from that for half a second.
20 people.
Yeah. At least 20 people, right? If we want some substitutes, but you're correct by rule. I agree.
Lacrosse balls.
We need balls.
Any kind of ball?
We
No,
did say lacrosse ball.
That's a
Any
lacrosse.
any kind of lacrosse ball?
It's
Certified.
white for men game.
CSAS.
Coaches decide they want to play with a different color.
Any color lacrosse ball? That's permitted by rules. Is there something else about the ball you need to make sure about?
It's got to be NOC
Noxie
approved.
certified.
There you go.
Yeah, there's a couple in there. That was good. All right.
Need a,
What else
need
do
a
we?
clock?
What else do we? A clock? Yeah.
Us. Officials.
Officials? Yeah. Do we need coaches?
Yeah.
Depends
Yeah.
on what player you ask, but yes.
Yeah. Fair. I'll give you that. Yeah, coaches.
Do you by
right?
rule? Do you actually
Yes.
need coaches by rule?
Yes.
Yes. Mhm. You need coaches by rule for an organized game, right? We need some kind of medical staff or at least medical professional around type of deal. We'll just blanket that for now for the sake of this. Yeah, we need a timer and a scorer, right? Really two different people would be great. And again, youth, we might lax these a little bit and depending on who we have, right? So we have field, we have all that good stuff. What else do we need? What are the bigger things we've missed so far? It's one other major category.
Protective equipment for the players.
Yeah, and not just
Lacrosse
protective.
sticks.
What else? Yeah,
Lacrosse sticks.
ding,
Yeah.
ding, ding. Spot on. So, as I always go, and we'll move this quick, but I kind of put it into these 4 categories. We did a super good job naming all those. So, again, by rule, right, we need a field, we need lines, you need a bench area. You technically need a bench. I've very rarely seen not a bench. Youth is, again, different. You need a table area, right? We want some kind of bleachers or some type of area for fans or spectators. Even in youth, that's lined out where it has to be across from the players, can't be on the same side. And, we want anything in terms of safety. We want clearing, right? We don't want soccer goals on the direct edge. We want to back a little bit. If there's any kind of, we played indoor. I think I already told this terrible joke. We had a sand pit on our field. That was great. Like a long jump pit was in the corner. And so that was very marked off and things like that. So understanding those things. For us, I know as simple as it sounds by including knowing where we're parking and knowing where we can go to the bathroom before and after the game or during the game is really important and necessary. And we kind of forget those things. Equipment, we went through all those and did really well. I always include maintenance and water in those. Maintenance, the idea of, things aren't falling apart for the players. Again, we kind of went through people really well. The rule kind of goes over ball retrievers. We don't see that very often. It's more in the college game, to be honest with you. But some kind of site administrator, parents, I feel are important, right? As fans and support systems, maybe not the yellers, but you get the point. And then we need things, as we said, right? We need the rules. We need things to be timed, right? We need to get there in appropriate time to set up the game and make sure things are good. Safety and security kind of stuff. W-9s or having your arbiter pay ready, right? Getting paid. That's one of the reasons why we do it. And then the other ones, which are always tough, sometimes we mention them, but right, knowledge and expectations and getting into the game, and also our attitude, as we said, and the professionalism of what we bring. Anybody want to add anything? That's super good all around. And so now we kind of get into the nitty gritty. And so again, our game, right? In rule 1, they're going to explain what we need to start the game. So again, we have 2 separate teams, right? There are going to be 10 total players that are needed to start the game. In the event of penalties or injuries or otherwise, if we are down to, we can continue playing with having a minimum of 7 players. Again, we rarely see this occur, but It has happened before. We need a legally equipped goalkeeper on the field at all times. We'll explain what that means. And then again, we have different names for positions, and I think I have a slide coming up on those, but essentially we have A for attack, M for midfield, and D for defense on those. We're also going to have a 6x6 goal. There's different types of goals in terms of obtuse. I'm not even sure if we put that in there, but essentially you see the one where it's obtuse, where it kind of comes flat and then goes down. And then there's kind of your regular triangle goals, as I call them. We don't overly worry, especially in youth and JVs, if we have some kind of net and without holes in it is what we're looking for. It is the responsibility of the home team to bring materials to repair those holes if needed. Again, depending on the level of play, if it's youth, we're going to do the best we can. If it is a high school game, we're not going to start the game until that goal is in good shape. Because what we don't want to happen, back to that same point, is we have a hole in the net and the ball goes through it, and then we have a hard time figuring out if that was a goal or not. Because it will wait until the last possible moment to hit that hole when it is tied and there's 30 seconds left. Always. It's Murphy's Law of Holes 101, right? To say the least. To John's point, we need a ball. We actually need more than one, but we need at least one to start. They need to be NOCSAE certified, NOCSAE. NOCSAE is a certification board that does helmets, does right now chest pads, which also need to be NOCSAE certified for what's called comiocortis, or sudden stop of the heart because of an impact. Goalie chest protectors also need to be NOCSAE, and then the ball needs to be NOCSAE. All of those evolve around both head and then also that comiocortis. Go ahead, John.
One other point, just on the ball, you'll see in the NFHS rulebook, it says it has to say that it meets NFHS standards, but you can still play the game as long as it's a NOCSAE approved ball.
Correct.
Do
And
they
we're
make non-Noxie approved balls?
you just jumped perfectly onto that exact point. You're spot on. And so they moved to this is pre-COVID 2018, 2019, if my memory serves me correctly, somewhere in that range. They made NOCSAE a certification that was required. So in that error of about 2 years, you could find balls for about $1 a piece, and that was the $3 to $4 range. I think they're like 5 and 6 even wholesale now at this point. But essentially, you could find balls for $1.50 because they were non-NOCSAE certified. So there was a good 2 years where you had to really check the ball a lot. We generally check at the beginning of the game. At this point in time, I don't want to say it can't happen, but it is extremely rare to find a non-NOCSAE ball at this point. That is still new and good looking, if that makes sense, because the rubber deteriorates, obviously. Good question. There was a hole that was like a witch hunt. We used to go find them. So moving on, then to the field. Don't overly complicate yourself. It will make more sense when you're out there, but we're going to give you the full field markings. Essentially, we have things called sidelines. That happens in every sport that we play outside. We have a sideline. We called an end line because that's where the field ends, and the field, there's a side to it. We then have a midline or a center line that goes down the middle. We have these things called wing lines, or excuse me, restraining lines or box lines. Those hold in the players for when we're doing face-offs, and we'll get into all that, and also allow us what we call the box, quote unquote, in order to satisfy our timing counts, because we have timing counts. So think basketball, not just a singular timeline, but we have two kind of timelines. We have a midfield timeline, similar in basketball, and then we have an into the box timeline. And again, we'll get into all that. And for when we do face-offs, it is a one-on-one initial play, and then we have two other people on each team, so a total of 3-on-3, and those players have to start beyond this wing line. So they give space to the face-off players. And again, we'll go through all those if you're on the newer side, but those are our generals. And then the crease area is where the goal is located. The goalie has privileges within those, and we'll go through those. And Mr. Naramore will do a fantastic presentation on the crease and all the wonderful things that occur in there. And then lastly, we have things that we call the substitution or the table area. And so the table area is behind. we have a substitution area, and then we have a team and a coaches area, and that's a point of emphasis this year. If you watch any of the college games, it's a lot cleaner usually than high school. It's a lot more lined out. And so again, the emphasis is that the teams actually be in the team areas, and we're now going to add a additional pylon cone on the back to represent where those players have to stand. It is my personal crusade, so if you don't want to join me, that's okay. But my pet peeve for years and years has been moving people back in the high school game, because this rule has changed several years ago, and nobody really likes to enforce it until last year. We made it a point of emphasis in our organization, and magically on video, every box was absolutely fantastic. And then you could absolutely see what was going on, and you could have changes, and you had less issues, and it was magical, all because we made it a point. But to that same idea is, if we drive something home and we start an expectation of, hey, coach, as a reminder, instead of trying to do it middle of the game, which usually ended up not good for the coaches, because I would get super mad when they tell me I didn't know what I was talking about and I should stop talking and officiate the game. Then I throw flags, and then we all get mad, and then we don't get out of there. And it doesn't. Now, before the game, coach has a reminder, this is where your players are going to stand. Can you show me where you think they are going to stand? And then they'd show me, and I go, great, awesome, high five. And if it wasn't, reminder, coach, this is where it is, and this is the expectation. We're going to ask you every time on that. So little things again like that allow the game, that seemingly are a small detail, but allow for better things to happen throughout the game and a lot more order that goes through. Questions on the field? Go ahead.
Rob, can you just make a comment about how the goal mouth is shown here in this picture, but that's not used for NFHS?
Oh, you are correct. So the goal mouth is in there. In high school, there was only a crease, so that's just a circle that is there. That is a total 9-foot radius. In the college game, we have a goal mouth where no offensive player is allowed to enter at any point in time. We will get there when we get to college review of rules later. Thank you, John.
The coaches area, Rob, just back 1 second.
Yeah.
You have that 10 yards from the center line is the edge, and then you have that dotted line. Is there a point where they can't keep going down to field and bothering you on GLE?
Yeah, it really extends. I forget the exact marking. It extends to like the 25, I think is technically where it goes. John's nodding his head. So I always seek his approval every day, and I got it. So mission accomplished for today. None of you laughed. That's okay. So 25-yard line is where you go. We're generally lenient of, again, every field isn't marked terrifically. Even turf fields have worn at this point. And sometimes they're a different color. They're a much darker color that you can't see. Again, if the coach is way down to the goal line or past, we're going to chase them back. Same thing if they come on the field, we're going to chase them back the best we can. Again, there's a difference, and this is a massive point of emphasis in the college game this year. This is the top point of emphasis. They don't want coaches anywhere past the 25. We feel, a lot of officials, I will lump a lot of us together in this comment, we feel if a coach is coaching constructively and talking to their players and talking to the defense and the offense, we leave them be. Right. I was always the one where I'd go down and I would pop a squat, and I'd be really low, and I would just sit and watch, but I would be much lower than I was supposed to be. And nobody ever bothered me because I didn't say anything. If that coach is out and screaming at you, it is a very different story, right? Because now they're out to come antagonize you, and we're not going to have that. If they're coaching their player, I'm generally never going to bother a coach, no matter where they are, except if they come out on the field. They come out on the field a little bit, fine. But we're going to pick our spots. And again, we're going to continue talking about this I might not, if I'm watching this goal, I'm not going to turn around and yell at this coach who's back at this corner. But as I run back down the field to get into my position to the next side, I might mention it as I go by. And I'm always super, as silly as this sounds, when I do the reminders, I always say please and thank you. I get so many comments about it, in a good way, by coaches, right? Hey, coach, please just reminder. I got it, sir. I got it. You're super good. Thanks. Appreciate the reminder, right? They're good. If you bark at them, they're not going to do it. But if you're nice and you're overly nice and you even start reminding, sometimes I'll remind them when they're a yard on the field and I don't even care. You know what I mean? But you start that expectation of, hey, I'm just going to keep reminding you. So when you do get 3 or 4 yards, I'll chase you back and you're not going to be mad about it because you know I'm going to remind you a whole bunch of times because we all need reminders. And to that larger point, without going into a dissertation on coaching here, but think of football. There is literally a get back coach on every single side. There's multiple get back coaches, right? So we need to also be that get back coach sometimes instead of throwing flags and getting mad. Just, hey, you need a reminder, right? Things are going hot and heated. Let's just move you back. Super good question.
Hey, Rob, just a quick note.
Yeah.
Fans, spectators.
Yeah, not behind. Good point. I think that's where you're going. Not behind. Again, we don't want anybody behind the goal. And again, we want to be cautious. Youth, the ball doesn't fly very far. High school, we really want to be cautious, I would say, from goal line down, sometimes even further, because again, players will shoot at a very sharp angle. And the ball might go to the same point, this 25-yard line, and fly to that 25. So just be cautious where they stand, or photographers. You can, again, if you can get it in a stoppage of play, remind them, be curious, move them. Only time I'm going to really stop play. This is such an absurd reference, but it's perfect. There's a high school that we used to service called Nanawag, and there was a playground on the end line, like with a slide would dump out into the actual field. And I'm not joking you. And every single kid that was a sibling of a player would play on that playground, and the kid would wind up and we would stop play. Not like if the ball was in flight different, but we would stop and get the kids to move. And so again, that doesn't happen very often, but I give you a real life example of we've had to kill the play in the middle because there was 3 and 4-year-olds running and they shoot very, very fast, and we don't want them injured, if that makes sense. Mike's face said it all. And he's like, why is there a playground? I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, it just, you'll never forget fields like that. Like, it just literally the giant twisty slide dumped out into the field. And you're like, this is a bad idea.
On the sidelines, you want the fans to be back to 6 yards. And we're bringing up a lot of points, but just remember this. You can get away with not enforcing these things a lot until you get burned by it. So you don't pay attention on the sidelines because the fans are too close and you decide, I don't really want to bother with it. And then all of a sudden it becomes an issue in your game and it becomes a real problem. So pay attention to these little things and take care of them ahead of time. And then you won't learn from a horrible mistake.
Excellently put. We do not have very many. I know of about 2 of them. One of which is youth in Madison. They line a lot of fields in a unified fashion. There's one, a high school that I don't think service anymore. New Haven, there's a turf field, New Haven, that has unified fields as well. In the event, if they are what is called unified and the field looks longer by 120 yards, we are allowed to play on these fields. And essentially what it does is it takes and puts the girls and boys crease in the same area. In a standard field, the boys' crease is up above the girls' crease. And so the creases are not the same. In the spirit of being able to line, save money, or turf, they allow to play on a unified field. We see very few of them, but just to mention it because it's in the rule book. The stick, I'll go fairly quickly on this one, but essentially you have 2 different types of sticks, not including the goalie. We're going to do him all to himself, but essentially you have what's called a short stick, a player stick, or a field stick. And so that is going to be 40 to 42 inches is the total length of that. They are going to have the same type of head on them, and that's what's called the lacrosse head. And so that is, and then we have a long pole. So that is going to be 60 to 72 off the top of my 52 to 72. That's what John is, my buddy. And so again, you don't really see too many cut down, but you're going to, in youth, you're going to see a whole bunch. We just generally do, we call it the Ted Murphy test, is where if we think it's over 6 foot, he is always wishing to be 6 foot, and he's 5'9". And so if the stick is taller than him by a whole bunch, it's not a good stick, right? Same to that other idea where we want the players to play to that point. We don't see it a lot in the high school, but you can. Same thing. We'll get into stick checks. We're not going to spend time tonight to kind of melt your brains, but essentially there is a lot of parameters on how the sticks can be manufactured, let alone strung, let alone, eventually changed and doctored. So essentially now shooting strings, it mirrors the college game. The shooting strings, which are essentially hockey laces or nylons, need to be within 4 inches of the top. you do not necessarily, it's recommended to have a ball stop, but you don't need to have one. And then the mesh needs to be firmly attached around the entire area. And then you cannot fit a golf ball through it. That is the size they came up with. It is like 1.68 inches or something ridiculous, but it is the standard size of a golf ball, is the easy way to kind of think about it. So again, seemingly no brain.
Rob,
No. Yes, go ahead, James.
If their stick is not what it's supposed to be, do they just like not play, or like do we have to police the sticks and all that, or check them?
We have a whole bunch of penalties about it. So when we get to penalties, we'll talk about the sticks more specifically.
Okay, perfect.
Good question. But yes, there's tiers of penalties, and each games has different. Essentially, we have fixable. So I'll go back to your thing. We have a fixable quote unquote penalty where we see it and we tell them to go fix it, and they have to fix it before they come back on. And if they don't, then it's a penalty. And then in the high school game, if it's an illegal stick, it's a 2-minute penalty. And we'll get into penalty times and differences and all that. On the equipment side of things, again, we're going to separate a field player from the goalie. So all, depending on the position, it doesn't matter, but all the field players need to have a helmet. They need to have a mouthpiece. They need to have elbow pads, shoulder pads, gloves, shoes made for the game of lacrosse. I didn't write the rule book. That is what it states. So whatever that means. And then they must have a cup. We're going to get the immediate joke out of the way and go on the opposite end. It's the same thing on, again, have a professional mindset when you're on the field. We do not talk or joke about cup checks or checking those things. Same reason where we don't overly talk to different timekeepers, athletic trainers, coaches, regardless of their gender or who they are. Remember, we are paid professionals who are representing an organization and essentially an extension of the school itself. And the last thing you would want in any regard is a grown adult talking to a 10, 12, 14, 16-year-old inappropriate or slightly inappropriate manner, or excuse me, in an inappropriate or even slightly borderline gray area at any point. So I always say the same thing. At this point, we call in the society cringe. Anything that remotely make you cringe, hearing from somebody, don't say it out loud to yourself or your partners. Make sense on that? That is my quick soapbox on that. But enough times in my life, I've seen it. And again, it's the trainers, it's the table areas, or it's the same idea where we make comments we shouldn't do, and especially in moments that a lot of people can hear, and things are all recorded. There's audio. Everybody has a phone. Everybody's on social media. Sound good on that? Thanks. That's always my PSA. Same thing. We'll get into what stick checks are, but then the goalie rib pads are not required for field players. They are listed there. They're recommended for youth. When we get to goalies, the goalie, which actually is required to have less equipment, believe it or not, but the goalie needs to have a helmet, same as the field player, a throat guard, a chest protector that is NOXI certified, along with the field player now has the NOXI certified, as we said. Goalie gloves, the goalie thumbs might be ginormous. They're allowed to have thumb protectors and hard plastic on those. Those are allowed. Again, that is the most common place they get hit normally is in the thumbs and a high chance of breaking. So they're allowed to have extra padding on those. And the goalie gloves in and of themselves are larger. They need lacrosse shoes. They need a cup. They need a mouthpiece, and they need a specific stick. Make sense? I'm just doing general overview of stuff. As we said, protective cup or pelvic protector has been added. It was added last year as a required piece of equipment. Same thing with the Comio Cordis NOXI certification. We don't go and check for those. The coach is going to certify that all his players are properly equipped, and that includes the Comio Cordis. In our pregame, at this point in time, almost all manufacturer equipment are up to the standard, and there's very few equipment still left that is not. But obviously, secondhand used stores, things like that, they can still occur, but we're going to allow the coach to certify that that has been checked. Things that are not, jerseys have to cover the shoulder pads. If they wear a penny in its youth or JV game, we want the player to play. The last thing we'll tell the very quick, and it will happen at least once in your season this year, of it's always the away team. It's always the kid who's the smallest, and it's always the kid who's having the worst day because he forgot his jersey in the locker room, on the bus, or at home. The last thing we want him to do is drive an hour on a bus, get to a field. His coaches already reamed him out. His parents are already disappointed to him. All of his teammates have made fun of him. The last thing we want him to do is sit there for another hour. Let him play. Make sense on that? Do what's best for the game. Keep it moving in that regard. Most goalies will wear sweatpants, regardless if it's 150 degrees or it's negative 150 degrees. They wear sweatpants. They feel it gives them an advantage. It might limit the sting. All of that is fine. Generally speaking, there needs to be one solid color. Almost all goalies are. It needs to be a team color, and they need to match if anybody else wears those. Again, we don't go fishing to find stuff we don't need to, if that makes sense. If they have an extra thing on it or a different color, or if they're in that picture that is not the correct maroon, we don't care. As long as they generally adhere, we're good. You cannot have tinted visors. You can wear sunglasses if they're prescription sunglasses. I've seen it twice in my entire career. The coach will tell you before it happens. Again, we don't go fishing. Do you have a doctor's note from an optometrist? We don't need that, if that makes sense. Couple of the jerseys, again, the home team wears white. The prep schools are not going to follow this. College has kind of moved to this where they need to be a lighter colored jersey. Usually they go opposite. That's fine. In high school, we generally want that unless the teams agree. Sometimes you'll hear ahead of time. Again, if it's a JV game, we just want the game to play at the end of the day. Same idea where we're not going to go fishing for numbers, and the same idea. And usually the coach is the first one to tell you it's always a youth game. I have 2 number 7s. What are we going to do? We're going to play the game, and I'm not even going to look at that kid's number. It's going to be okay, coach. I gotcha. Right? Keep it moving to that same point. If it's a high school game, different story. We need for them to be in the book. That's a different story.
Occasionally in a sub-varsity game, you might, and I didn't have this happen to me much over the years, but both teams have the same color. So if that occurs, the home team needs to change.
Just in the rule book, these are extremely rare for you to see these types of things. But again, we just want to address it. You cannot have football pads for goalies. You will see, again, youth, especially younger, 7, 8, 9 years old, if they are wearing some kind of padded girdle, we're going to allow it. We're also going to allow, if they have shin guards on, we're going to allow them to have shin guards. At the end of the day, if it gets to high school, we're not going to allow it. But again, the last thing we want is that 7-year-old to catch one off of the chin and they don't ever want to play goalie again. Right. And so again, more protection is fine. You can't have football helmets or helmets not made. So again, that kind of goes into the box idea. You can't have hockey helmets, and then you cannot have any kind of auditory device that is in there. I always laugh at this point. Even though I haven't read the rules or looked at any of this, I can read all of this verbatim because I've said it so many times. It's kind of absurd.
Goalkeepers may have shin pads. That is
yes.
Allowed.
Yeah. They generally, yeah. What is allowed is if there's any religious medal or if there is any medical medal or identifier, they're also allowed to have those to that same point. Any kind of medical device, we've rarely seen that, but think of like an insulin pump or something of that nature. Those are more than allowed to happen. Again, usually the coaches will make you aware of things of that nature. Same idea where if they have, again, a cast or things of that nature that is inside the glove, we are generally going to allow it. And they're usually going to ask you things. Usually a lot of times an air cast, they're not going to play with a hard cast because they can't move and bend their arm. But sometimes you'll see it where they have a soft cast or things of that nature. And coach will tell you, hey, it's wrapped up. They foamed it, yada, yada, yada. Are we good? The answer is yes. We want that kid to play if they're medically cleared. Uniforms, again, I will spend all of a minute and a half just going through these since we spent a lot of time last week and had this on the video, and we have the amazing video of Bruce doing that. But again, black hat that's piped, same as football, an all black shoe. Watch, again, timing is very tough at the JV and at the youth level to find somebody reliable or having a table. So I recommend bringing a watch. My personal time I usually do it the most is I always bring it to youth games, right? You're always going to have to time it on the field, and that's okay. But having that varsity games, I'm not a big watch guy, so that's up to you. some kind of tape measure. Smaller is better. All black is better. You can find small ones. I found I switched to seamstress ones, so they're like flexible and they're just a little like coin sized ones, and they fit really nicely, and they're all black, and they're like $2 on Amazon, which is kind of nice. As we said, the long toss flags with the black ball is what we recommend, because again, you cannot see, PJ's got it here hanging out and you can't see it, and then you can kind of see Mark has got his on the back here, his tape measure or his beeper, and you can't even tell that it's on his belt loop. A coin, when you're a referee, again, your partner is most likely going to have one. So if you don't have to splurge, get something bigger than a silver dollar size. They make larger ones. I like larger ones because you can flip them a little bit easier. Again, I personally use a smaller whistle. I have both the covered mouth guard one that I use that goes on my finger, and then I use a smaller one, which is likened to a basketball one that I have on what's called a Smitty chain, which is just a small piece of nylon that hangs and you can put the whistle in your pocket to do face-offs. I have found, my very personal recommendation is that when you have a face-off violation and you drop your whistle out of your mouth and now it's on the grass, it's really tough to blow the whistle to restart the play. So I've gotten the habit of I drop that face-off whistle and it's attached to me, so I can't drop it, and I don't use my hand whistle. But we'll get into all the mechanics and things of that nature.
Quick comment on
Go
that.
ahead. Yeah.
There are a lot of basketball guys here, and you're used to carrying the whistle in your mouth. We strongly recommend you use the finger grip whistle because it's going to give you an extra second or two to process the play before you blow the whistle. You don't generally need to call plays that is blow the whistle as quickly as you do in basketball. So this would be an adjustment, but it's highly recommended that you use the finger grip and that you learn how to use that in lacrosse in a different way than you use the whistle in basketball.
What about the electronic Fox 40s that you have the press button?
We do not use those at all, and I would not recommend. I'm not sure if it's even mechanically allowed at this point. I won't go that far. They're tough to hear and they're massively delayed. They're not good. My other, and we're going to talk about this when we get into, and I think that might be next week's to do, or no, whenever we get, we're going to have you go through mechanics and stuff like that. We're going to talk about cadence of your whistle. There's different cadences. The problem with the electronic one is that it's a single cadence. It's really hard to move things differently, if that makes sense. So you could have a as simple as those things are, they communicate very differently and they get different attentions, and they also symbolize different ways. Go ahead, Dick.
Rob, yeah, just a quick point on the Fox 40s. They're not P whistles. So don't buy a whistle with a P in it.
No, get the Fox 40.
Correct.
It's the best whistle in the game.
Yeah.
I don't know how they haven't changed their branding to that at this point. But that leads us to the last couple items. So then you need a pencil with an eraser on it. They call them bullet pencils is what they're called. I generally will buy the bullet pencil and then I actually replace them. I have a whole bunch of like quick draw lotto pencils / mini golf pencils. So if you're ever with me, my dad got me a box. It's like 800. So it'll last me at least 50,000 years. So if you ever want a pencil, I got one. Usually hand one out. And then a scorecard, the John Burnon's favorite item of his entire repertoire, and he's gonna blush when I say that. He loves writing things as a scorecard. I don't use my scorecard, but that's for a different thing. We'll tell you what to write and how to write it. It is good to catalog certain things, especially at lower levels when we don't have scoreboards. I am very spoiled at this point. I get to work almost all games with scorecards and awesome timers. Besides the point. You have a timer mechanism. Again, that is the most expensive singular item outside of the shoes we're going to ask you to buy and maybe the jacket and the shirts. But essentially, it is a 20 and an 80-second timer that goes on. 20 and a 140. I am so sorry. My brain has melted at that point.
100.
Yeah. Whatever John says, just believe him. It's 20 and 100 is a minute 40 and a 20-seconder. Again, we'll go through when we use those. There's the big one that vibrates that is more football-esque. I don't really like that one. I like the small one still, as I said. It's lasted me about 15 years. Then our last part are combinations. I know we're kind of going in the weeds here, but we have specific combinations and it kind of makes sense. Shorts and shorts. We could do long sleeves and shorts. We could do long sleeves and pants. We do not do short sleeves and pants like basketball officials. If you want to add a jacket, we generally will do jackets when we're doing long and shorts, or long and longs, as we call them. Sometimes it does get a little chilly, or it's misting and things like that. You might wear your jacket and things like that, especially if it's a JV game. Again, think your own comfortability and not necessarily safety, but same thing. Last thing you want to be doing is standing on a field for 2 hours while it's drizzling and be soaked, if that makes sense. So if you can be comfortable, still look professional, all we care about. And again, white hats for in college, go for May, and same thing in high school. Quick pause there. Anybody got anything? All right. We'll kind of rocket through Rule 2 and get as much as Rule 3 in these next 20 minutes as we can. Again, I always feel bad. This is kind of the boring portion of our show at this point, where I'm just kind of talking off slides at this point. But these are, again, the definitions of the game and are what you need before the game even starts. So almost all of your games will be 2 officials. And in those 2 games, you're going to have a veteran official. They're officially called the referee, and then you're going to be assigned as the umpire. You have equal calling power. It is not like football where you have different responsibilities and different jobs. You are equal officials, similar to basketball, but you have a crew chief. So if something happens or you need to talk to the coaches, or at the end of the day, it rarely happens, but if the 2 of you can't agree, the referee gets to win, and that's the end of it. Generally, you should work on your human soft skills before you get to that point, or just read up on the rules and have a better idea. But in the event it happens where something goes really, really sideways, like in that video, I saw no goal, no, I saw goal. Both shouldn't be looking at the goal. Besides the point, referee gets to overrule the other person. In a 3-man crew, you add what's called a field judge. Again, all equal, but you have your crew chief, and then the umpire is technically second in charge. Not a lot for that umpire to do in that, but how it works. Timekeeper, again, when you get up in rankings of games, you're going to have timekeepers and maybe multiple people at the table, where you might have somebody, if it's a prep school game, one person doing shot clock, one person doing the actual game clock, and then another person maybe just doing score or statistics. You might have 2, 3, 4, 5 people at those benches. At a lot of the lower games, again, hate to say it, but a lot of your JV games, if it happens before or after the varsity, either the coaches or the administrators who need to open and set those things up aren't there early enough until the varsity game. So the JV game does not get a scoreboard. And a lot of times, as soon as the varsity game's over, they want to pack up, go home, and the JV plays without those things. So just be aware of that. Bring a timing device. It is now required to have a horn. It's really always been required, but it's now enforced this year. We're going to have a horn at the table. That's in the event either the scoreboard does not have an audible horn to end the period, or in the event of there's certain scenarios where if the coaches can go to the table and request it, or if the bench area needs to get your attention, they blow an air horn and get your attention.
If there's an electronic scoreboard that has a horn on it and that control is at the table, they don't need to have the air horn. But if the
Correct.
control is up in a press box somewhere and they don't control the horn from the table, then they need an actual manual horn that you see in the picture.
Scorekeeper, again, lower levels, we're not going to require. Go ahead.
Do we have to bring that horn with us, or will they have that already there?
Home team supplied.
Okay, perfect.
We just bring the cool thing. We just bring this and our bodies. Scorekeeper, not required lower levels. You mostly won't see them. They might not have a book. We're going to play the game if they don't have a book on the JV level. High school, we need a book. We need a scorekeeper sitting at the table along with that timekeeper. Both are required at the varsity level. Again, the players, they're going to define them in the rule book. As we said, we have defenseman, attack, midfield. We also have these special terms. I feel like there's a slide, but a long stick midfielder. We have a short stick midfielder, and we have a face-off player. Or a FOGO, face off, get off. Oh, there they are. So again, you're going to have a goalie, 3 defensemen, 3 midfielders, 3 attackmen. We'll go through offsides, where they have to stand, and all that good stuff. But again, just basic terms of the game to just kind of review them. Head coaches will go through the pregame and certification, but again, that there has to be a head coach to, I think, James, somebody, Tyler, maybe you asked that question. You have to have a head coach by rule at all levels, including youth. Again, at a youth level, and we've even seen it at the varsity level where the school doesn't have one and they show up, you need some kind of responsible adult who's not a player. Somebody over 18 that vouches as the coach. I will use this 10 seconds for comedic relief. There was a technical school that traveled with 10 players and no coach, and they would show up to the game. And about a minute before the game, your partner and I would be looking at each other and we'd go, we don't see another adult, any other human anywhere on this field. This game's not going to start. And with about 30 seconds left, an adult would walk off of the bus, come and sit down on the bench area with a reading book in their hand and go, yes, I'm the head coach. I certify that everybody's properly equipped and to the best of my ability, and I have no further questions, and I'm all good. I'm not going to talk for the rest of the game. And they would sit down, and they did that all year, and they were great. And I feel like their name was Gladys, and they were amazing. But they were the bus driver, and they vouched, and they did it, and they were awesome. And then by the end of every game, Gladys would be coaching them because she understood basketball, right? Things like that. So to that same point, games, you want the game to occur. And when you think back on that, as silly as it sounds to watch Gladys walk on the book and read the book for the rip off the bus and then read her book for the first half of, the kids loved her, right? And like she was cool and she helped them, and they had the ability to play a high school lacrosse season for a year before the school discontinued it. So things like that, again, understand why we're out there and do to the best of your ability to keep people safe, but to do what's best for the players, as we said.
Rob, do you want to just say one word about assistant
go
coaches
ahead.
talking to officials versus head coaches?
Yeah, I was just going to say at the end. So in the rule book, it is actually required that the head coaches help us. That they actually are there to maintain order and actually assist officials in that responsibility. At no rule book, youth, high school, or college is an assistant coach mentioned. So by default, assistant coaches have no privileges and no perks and no responsibilities. With that said, we are going to use assistant coaches as tools. They can help us and they will be positive. We're going to absolutely entertain that. If they're going to be negative and antagonistic, we're going to recite the rule that they have no responsibility, privileges, or ability to talk to us. And that's the end of that story. And it usually ends very quickly when we go that route because they're not happy, we're not happy, but we win because we have the rules. So if we use them as tools and we talk to them and we're respectful and we allow them a chance to be reminded to get back and, hey, funnel it through your head coach, or they have a very simple question. Hey, what did you have on that call? Which is different than why did you make that call, right? What did you have? We can explain and teach, and they can now coach their players. We're now using them as a tool. Hey, why did you make that call? We cut it right there. We have that fence up. I don't say a wall, I say a fence. You can still see over it. We have a chance to mend it, right? But using them in that responsible manner. With that said, we have a couple other terms. We have an in-home, which is very foreign to everybody, including lacrosse people, of why we have an in-home still to this day. It used to be an assigned person. In order to do penalties, we have to designate a starting attackman who needs to be in the lineup and in the starting when the game starts, who has to serve team penalties. So we ask the coach for a starting attackman who's in the lineup and will start, and then we call him the in-home. And then Mr. Naramore is going to add, if I can remind all of you, in youth, we're going to add a designated defender to that. So in the event the goalie gets a penalty in youth, we're going to allow the designated defender to serve that only in youth, not high school. But we're going to do that ahead of time. So that way, when it gets really contentious later and we throw a flag on the goalie because the goalie tried to take a kid's head off and we need to have him, we're going to go that. And then again, we have other methods, but you get the point.
Rob, just to add, and I'm sure John was about to say it as well, that starting that in-home player has to be the first number in that scorebook, the first attackman in the book. So it's not super critical, but you should check the book at a varsity level. There should be a scorebook there. Just take a peek. Whoever they said was their in home, just make sure he's the first one in the book.
So then we move to captains. And so captains are, again, going to be defined. So there needs to be at least one per team. We're going to have what's called a speaking captain in terms of who gets to call the coin toss. And we're going to go through the coin toss and everything like that. But again, the captains, I use them the same way as assistant coaches. We use them as tools. We'll go through the lineup and everything else in my spiel when we get to the lineup next week. But again, use them as tools. It more often than not, if you make yourself approachable to them and try to avail yourself and you can remember who they are in scenarios, it goes a long way. So instead of blowing a whistle 10 times and telling 14, come here, and you want to talk to them, and that looks really bad because now you're parenting and scolding somebody, instead saying, hey, 23, I need a favor. Hey, you're the captain, right? Yeah. Now they're all excited. Hey, I got a job for you. 14, he's a hothead. You need to put a lid on him before we have to throw flags. Can you do that for me? I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. And now all of a sudden 23 is all amped and ready to go because they have a job. They're going to go do that, right? Even in the college game, when you pull them aside, they're like, oh my God, I'm being talked to. I love this, right? And they're going to go do it for you. So you can use it as tools. And again, a lot of the times they're going to be the first ones to help calm everybody down in tense situations. Again, ball retrievers are in the book, very seldomly used. They're not permitted behind the goal. They need to have a helmet and a contrasting uniform. To the players, again, you normally see in a varsity game, if there are featured or in college games, they're usually youth players that are in full gear that are behind. We don't see it. It is the home team's responsibility at certain points at the quarter ends or by officials' request to restock the end line or certain position where balls need to be stored. So if again there's not enough balls in an area to allow for a appropriate restart, you can request. I usually ask the coach, I say, hey coach, we need it, and we'll turn around to the bench area and ask somebody. It doesn't need to be immediate, but what you essentially want to see, they'll generally send a bench player to go restock those. You want to see some kind of movement. And as long as there's some kind of movement toward it, they'll get the balls there, try to do it before the last ball's out, right? But if there's one or two balls left, hey, coach, we need to restock, that kind of idea. We'll just go through, I'm going to blast through that activity since we got 8 minutes here. Just because we usually spend a lot of time next week on this, so if we can knock this out. So game length, again, game length is going to be very standard in terms of what level we're doing. If we're always going to play 4 quarters, no matter what level, unless the coaches again agree to a scenario. We are going to agree to less, but not more, if that makes sense. So if the coach says, oh, we're just going to play for 90 minutes and untimed, and we don't really care. No. But if they say, hey, the sun's going down, we got to get them back on the bus, there's prom tomorrow, SATs, whatever, I only got 11 guys, we're going to play 8 minutes, great. High five. Go ahead. We don't want to make it 2 minutes, obviously. We want them to get a proper value out of what they're paying for. And so in high school varsity, we're always going to play 4 12-minute stop time quarters, no matter what. That is standard. They cannot agree out of that. JV, we have 2 options. We either do 10-minute stop or 12-minute running time. 12-minute running time usually goes faster because the ball stops when it goes out of bounds. And usually in a JV, they have 3 balls and the ball goes to the next zip code. And so that's what takes longer, 9 times out of 10. Ask them what they want to do. We don't have to be overly persuasive. Coach, you want to do 8 minutes? We don't do that, right? But we ask them, right? Coach, what are you thinking? They go, I don't know. Are you good with 12-minute run? Sure. That's okay. But coach, we're going to do a running clock. Well, how much time? That's not okay. Make sense on the subtle differences on that? Youth games, ask the coaches because they might be all over the map on what they're doing and things like that. We normally have a 2-minute break in between the quarters and a 10-minute halftime. They can reduce the halftime if the coaches agree, if they want to go 5 minutes or 6 or 7. If they cannot agree, it has to be 10 minutes. Again, that comes back to the timing factor of things and why we have a timing unit on our device so we can time the timeouts, and we'll get to that in a second. In the event there is 12 or more goals scored in the second half at any point, the clock will turn to running clock, no
A
matter what.
lead, a lead
A
of
12 goal lead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Differential.
What is, did I say differential? Did I not say?
You just said 12 or more goals. Yeah. It's
Oh, excuse me. 12 goal differential.
Yeah.
In the event, the next follow-up question, what happens if the team comes back? It never goes back to stop time. The rule got changed. Justin is very excited because that used to happen all the time. It used to be 13-1, and then the other team scores and it's 13-2, and then it stays 13-2 for almost 21 minutes of that second half. And then in the last minute it's 86-2. Right. It never, once it starts, it never stops. Even if the team who was losing is in the lead, it still runs. We've never seen it happen, but that they moved it and it was a good rule change. It just created chaos. The idea of the mercy rule is when you're losing by 12 or more, it gets very contentious, it gets heated. Usually the away team or the losing team wants to take shots, the winning team wants to rub it in. Everybody gets not into a safe scenario, including the officials. So it just speeds up the game and makes things not happen. In the last 2 minutes, this is a unique lacrosse thing. We have a stall that goes on, and so that restrains the players. We'll go more in depth, but restrains them to that attack box area around the goal, as we said, if it is 4 or less in the last 2 minutes. So in any other scenario, if it's a 5-goal lead, if it's a 6-goal lead, if it's 3 minutes left, it doesn't matter. If it's 2 minutes, 4 or less, we have a get it in, keep it in, and then the restrain to that box area. We'll go more in depth on that. But just
the mercy rule and the automatic stall rule don't apply to sub-varsity prep school games if you get those. So just make sure you know that.
And I'll add to Rob, for football officials at halftime, there's no mandatory 3-minute warm up at the end of halftime. So whatever the clock is winding down, we would basically say 2 minutes to go. We turn our beeper on. They got to be out in the field on time.
Excellent. So this is, we'll probably end on this one for time wise, but might do the whistles with you guys. But essentially, this seems very silly when I say this, but everybody always laughs at me because at some point in the season, you're going to remember what I said, and I'll tell you this multiple times throughout the weeks, but you're going to remember that if you work a game with Rob doesn't work 2 hours when he's paid for 90. If it's overtime, I'm going to work it, and I'm going to try really hard. But if we can get out at an appropriate time, we're going to get out and we're going to be as efficient as possible. I will be late to everything, but I will also make sure we're getting out on time, if it makes sense. And so this seems really silly, but again, think about if you do a lot of games, 40, 50, 100, 150 games, including summers, and your 9-hour summer day goes to 11 hours, or it can go to 8 hours, I'm going to pick an 8-hour day, right? Every single time. And the quicker you can get out. What you can do, we are not going to take time off the clock, but we can limit what we call the dead ball time. That is our time that we control. So what that means, as we said, the hour and 10, we can't control that. It's got to be an hour and 10, unless the coaches agree on something else, like a half break or things like that. But as we say with the face-offs can be quick. In college, they'll time us, and they want from the goal is scored to when the next face-off whistle blows to be 20 seconds. When we show you video, you will see that is 2, 3, 4 minutes. That is an eternity. It doesn't sound like a lot, but you add that up, and 40 goals, if anybody watched the Jacksonville game, Rutgers, 38 goals scored. Add 3 minutes times 38. You're there for another 90 minutes. As crazy as that sounds, right? You can buy time back by jogging and getting to the spot. Same thing with the penalties. Instead of taking a minute or 2 or 3 minutes to administer a penalty, you can get it done in 20 or 30 seconds and relay. Same thing with your restarts. You start chopping that time down, you start saving 20 and 30 minutes. That adds up over the season a ton. The most crucial part to that, as I always say, if you're losing and not having a good time and somebody's been chirping you and you want to take their head off and you get an extra 20 minutes to do so, you're probably going to take advantage. As simple as that sounds. The more you're with somebody in a scenario you don't like, the more you're going to get fed up. So the shorter time you can allow those things without taking away from the actual game, and you can expedite that and be in and out, it's usually a better experience for everybody involved, even if it's a lopsided game. Make sense on that? We'll end on this last.
One other comment.
Oh, go ahead.
Games don't end.
Yeah.
Games don't end in a tie, and overtime is 4 minutes, regardless of whether it's a varsity game playing 12-minute quarters or a JV or thirds game playing 10-minute quarters. Overtime's always 4 minutes.
Oh, we don't have the video here. We'll play the one next week.
And in a treble game, we cannot end a game early. We can suspend it and send it to, in this case, CIAC for adjudication, but we can't say this game's over. Can't do that. Can only suspend it.
And so, to Dick's point, you're going to see like weather, things like that. If there is a weather, we're going to hang out the best we can. Obviously, seek shelter. You have metal poles in people's hands, so we want to find space. Again, this should be something generally coordinated before the game. You usually know what the weather is going to be like. We're in an area where thunderstorms don't come out of left field, fortunately. Even though the weather changes a lot, we normally know when it's a thunderstorm, if that makes sense. Same thing if you feel field conditions. Again, it's your say on those things. And as John said, we have overtime. And again, the coolest thing about overtime is you don't need to learn the overtime rule. And everybody laughs at me. You don't, because on your scorecard, on the back of it, they list all the overtime rules. That's the only thing on the scorecard that actually helps you, John Vernon. And so if you flip it over, you can read all the rules. And every single time, I'm always the first one. Overtime, I take out my card. I'm like, what the hell are we doing right now? And I look and I read it. And then everyone's like, man, you remember those? Absolutely. 100% memorize them by heart. I have no idea. So you can always cheat and you can always use your scorecard. So that's a great little trick on that one. With that, we're going to go over how to blow your whistle and all that other good stuff. I think we're doing rule 4. We're going to get the to-do out. I'll kind of go over these smaller ones, but we'll kind of go over team timeouts and starting and stopping the clock and whistle mechanics and all that cool stuff next week. Sound good? As always, we're gonna let you go because it's 8:32. But if you have any questions, all of us will stay on the cadre wise until last person ready to go. So appreciate it. The recap and the to-do list will be out sometime tomorrow morning ish. It might come out a little bit later, to be honest. It might be tomorrow afternoon, but it'll be out tomorrow in a PDF. And we'll see you next Monday. So if you need anything,
Rob,
let us know. Thanks, everybody.
Rob,
Go ahead, Dick.
I will email everybody, regardless of location, of where I'll be tomorrow and Thursday. So I'll just use the email on your listing, and I'll email everybody with what we're going to do for the rule books.
Perfect.
Rob, you want to turn off the recording?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. All right.